Most of the change you guys are trying to drive is with unwilling people. They believe that their willingness is about if you can make it easy, and if you tell them ahead of time, and if you take work off their plate while they're doing this, and if you make sure the regulators don't change anything. Most people say yes and then put 100 conditions on it. As a leader, I need you to make sure you're clear on what it's going to take. And then buy-in is a choice. It is a verb. It is something I need you to deliver up or game over. And so it's not where I threaten you, but I really find my willing, and it may not be 100%. And here's where I conserve my energy. I focus on working with the willing and moving that part of the bell-shaped curve forward, and then the gap widens, and those that are unwilling have some natural consequences for their behavior rather than enabling. The bottom line here is that you make people aware, and then you help them place their energy, not in drama responses, whining, panic, complaining, editorializing on why it can't, but conserving the energy and focusing on how it could. And once they know the magnitude of what they're being asked, then you've got to go after willing, because most of you get into a really tough situation because you're trying to work with the unwilling. And buy-in is a verb, but it also is the responsibility of the employee or the partner. And that's where business readiness really changes, because I have to say, you know, what's your level of buy-in? We're being held to this extent, and I may not be the boss of you, but I'm saying, you know, somewhere in the matrix, I'm saying to the geography, this is what we need to do differently. But we don't agree with that, and say, I appreciate you sharing your opinion, and since it's our business school, I would like to tailor the conversation to how we could and what your level of willingness is. And if somebody said to me, I have zero level of willingness, I would say, you know, if I can't impact that, would you at least give that to me in an email so that I could include that in, you know, my reporting out on where we're at with this initiative? People back up. They're like, well, I'm not going to go online saying I'm unwilling. Well, great. Then let's talk about being willing. It seems like being unwilling isn't really an option. You yourself recognize that. So now let's talk about, you know, what commitments you can make to help me make this work. And this isn't retaliation, it's just stop enabling. The next step then is, once you're willing, prove it to me. I want to see advocacy. If I'm not in this room, are you talking about this change the same way that you did with me present? In the hallways, can I count on you to have an elevator speech and absolutely give that speech anywhere that you are? And one of the things when people are willing that I find is they join the silent majority. We don't have as much resistance to most change as we think we do. The problem is our volume control. We allow whole meetings to be dominated by 3 people out of 20 who are resistors, and everybody else stays silent. And then we leave the room and we're like, why, you know, why do they always have to be given so much time in these meetings? I noticed this a lot when I was working in healthcare, is we would meet and a few dominant personalities would talk about why we couldn't and why we shouldn't have to and how crazy it was. I would leave the room, people would text me, go, Sai, I loved what you said in there, I'm behind you 100%, you have my full support. And I would text them back and say, thanks for the support, it'd be nice if you do that publicly in the room. And so as a leader, a technique that we have to do, and I just noticed that I think my slide is maybe misspelled, but as a leader, what we need to do is we need to activate the silent majority instead of fighting the resistance. So once people are willing, as I say, great, now that you're willing, can I count on you to be an advocate, to speak up in meetings, to redirect energy, to you know, focus your hallway conversations differently? And once I've got people willing and advocating, only then do I need to go heavy into the participation, which is, now that you're on board and that, you know, you're going to be an advocate for this, let's talk about our planning together and very nitty gritty how we're going to scope this, make this happen and move this forward. Because advocacy is so important, and most people have never been asked. we were in an organization, and then I know I described it in the pre-work, but it was an open source organization, and they had an online chat forum where employees could comment on anything. And they meant that to be people who could comment and say, I know we want to move in this direction. Here's my best idea, so that the best ideas would be iterative and the best things would rise to the top. But what it became was this venue for people to complain and for the most resistant to talk about why it wouldn't work. And they were so frustrated, and they kept asking me, what should I do with these people who won't work with us, the unwilling, the resistors? And I said, leave them alone. Don't take them on. That just builds more resistance. Go after the willing and ask them to advocate. So in one-on-ones, they found folks who were complaining about what was happening online, and I asked them, would you be willing to write a positive review? What you're telling me, would you be willing to put that online? It only took about 3 weeks until the people that were in major resistance were silenced, because they soon realized that they weren't in the majority, that their behavior wasn't acceptable, that that wasn't the norm. But right now, when we don't insist on advocacy, our advocates are silent, so our resistors actually have bad data, and they believe that they represent the majority when they don't. So your job as a leader is to activate the silent minority or majority, and to really get better data out there.